When a notorious serial killer tears through a Florida sorority house in 1978, two determined women refuse to let him own the narrative or their futures. 1. A fractured night at Florida State. It is the bitter cold pre-dawn of January 15th, 1978, and Pamela Schumacher is drifting into uneasy sleep in the Chi Omega house at Florida State University. Jessica Knoll opens Bright Young Women with a scene that hums with normal college life. Drunken giggles down the hall, record players spinning, exam flashcards taped to mirrors, before a sudden thud shatters the fragile quiet. Pamela, the poised chapter president, known for her meticulous schedules and steel-trap mind, registers the sound first as a door slamming, then a second thud. She bolts upright. What unfolds next is a first-person account so visceral that listeners can almost taste the metallic tang of fear. Pamela steps into the corridor and meets the kind of silence that buzzes in the ears. Two of her sisters lie brutally bludgeoned. Two others cling to life. The killer, a stranger who slipped in through an unlocked door, has vanished into the Tallahassee night. In real life, history will remember this moment as part of Ted Bundy's final rampage, but Knowles' point of view never names him. The spotlight stays on the women. The sorority house becomes a crime scene, crawling with patrol cars, glaring lights, and male detectives who brush Pamela aside, filing her under hysterical co-ed. Even as she comforts survivors and calls parents, she notices how reporters angle their cameras to frame her sisters' broken bodies, how headlines instantly elevate the murderer to near mythic status, and how no one is asking about the victims' lives, dreams, or majors. Pamela vows in that blood-streaked hallway that she will be their voice. Knoll seeds the narrative with the era's cultural backdrop. 1970s sexism, the tail end of Vietnam, and the dawning awareness of campus sexual violence. Pamela's instinct for leadership locks into place. She collects every memory, what songs were playing, which lights were burned out, how long the killer lingered. She tucks them away not just for police but for posterity, determined these bright young women will not be reduced to forensic footnotes. 2. Ruth's Echoes from Washington State. 5 years earlier and 3,000 miles away, 32-year-old Ruth Wachowski is living in Seattle, a community center administrator with a shy smile and a secret relationship. Her closest friend, Tina Cannon, a brash, adventurous law student, has just convinced Ruth to hike Mount C the following weekend. But Tina never makes it home. She vanishes from a busy park in broad daylight, a trail of shoe prints ending in pine needles. 1 week later, her body is discovered near Lake Sammamish. Ruth's chapters alternate with Pamela's, threading two timelines into a single tapestry. While Pamela's voice is urgent and propulsive, Ruth's is quieter, etched with years of survivor's guilt. She flashes back to small moments. Tina blowing cinnamon sugar off a donut. Tina thanking Ruth for seeing her when others ignored her bisexual identity. Ruth's grief runs alongside her shame that she survived while Tina did not. In the wake of Tina's murder, Ruth clashes with officials who eye her sexuality and consider her an unreliable witness. The police latch onto a composite sketch of a charming, arm-sling-wearing man who coaxed Tina toward a tan Volkswagen Beetle, yet leads stall, files gather dust, and the nameless suspect racks up new victims from Utah to Colorado. Ruth channels her agony into advocacy, volunteering at a rape crisis hotline and tracking missing persons reports in a spiral-bound ledger. She becomes quietly obsessed with patterns. The unifying thread is always women punished for daring to move freely in public. Still, Ruth cannot break through the systemic apathy. Years pass and the killer remains free, a ghoulish campfire story whispered across state lines. Knoll positions Ruth's frustration as a foil to Pamela's budding crusade. showing how justice delayed mutates into justice denied. Although the women have not yet met, their destinies move on a collision course. 3. Patriarchy, publicity, and the invisible victims. Knoll's mid-novel sections scrutinize the machinery that props up male violence. In Tallahassee, national networks descend on Chi Omega, eager for sound bites that feed America's appetite for lurid detail. Producers nudge Pamela to describe blood splatter. Anchors rehearse the killer's name with chilling reverence. Even the police adopt the media's catchphrase, calling him the campus killer, branding him like a blockbuster villain. Pamela grasps that every minute the spotlight shines on the murderer is a minute stolen from her friends Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy. She counters by staging a campus vigil and reading essays the victims wrote for English class, forcing cameras to linger on their words. Her stand wins public sympathy, yet sparks institutional backlash. University officials threaten discipline for staining FSU's reputation. Donors worry about enrollment numbers. Pamela, formerly prized as a model student, is recast as a troublemaker. Meanwhile, in Seattle, Ruth pores over news clippings of the Florida attack and recognizes mirrored wounds on the survivors, bite marks, fractured skulls, missing hair that match Tina's case files. She pens letters to the FSU sorority, offering details only another survivor could know. Most go unanswered until one finally reaches Pamela, who has set up a makeshift command center in the Chi Omega basement, complete with corkboards and index cards. The women connect by phone, their first conversation halting, both aware they may be the only people on Earth who understand each other's trauma. Their alliance spotlights broader themes, how misogyny operates through both spectacle and silence, and how the criminal justice system relies on female labor, even as it dismisses female testimony. Knoll paints prosecutors hungry for career-making trials, detectives who treat survivors like delicate glass, and defense attorneys eager to blast victims' reputations. The novel indicts not one villain, but a culture that romanticizes his cruelty while discrediting the very women he targeted. 4. Building a case and reclaiming the narrative. The final act spins like a legal thriller powered by Sisterhood. Pamela invites Ruth to Florida, and together they revisit the Chi Omega house, reconstructing the killer's path. Ruth notices a unique double tap mark on the window frame identical to one at Lake Sammamish, confirming the same perpetrator. They compile a dossier that dwarfs the police file. As trial preparations accelerate, Pam and Ruth face attempts to sideline them. Prosecutors want a streamlined narrative focused on DNA and eyewitness ID, fearing the defense will tear apart the women's emotional testimonies. The friends refuse invisibility. They rehearse statements late into the night, trade coping strategies, Ruth's mindfulness breathing, Pamela's color-coded note cards, and forge a bond that transcends geography and age. In court, media frenzy reaches fever pitch. The defendant, smug, camera-savvy, turns the courtroom into a circus, proposing to a girlfriend mid-trial, grinning for flashbulbs. Knoll demonstrates how charisma can weaponize misogyny, transforming a murder suspect into a folk anti-hero. Pamela testifies anyway, her voice trembling only once when she describes Margaret's favorite Fleetwood Mac record. The moment humanizes the dead more than any autopsy photo could. Ruth's testimony brings the Pacific Northwest murders into the narrative, unveiling a multi-state pattern the defense hoped to suppress. Cross-examination is brutal, prying into her sexuality, implying jealousy or fetishism. Yet Ruth holds, buoyed by Pamela's steady gaze from the gallery. Jurors avert their eyes from Ruth's pain, but they absorb her facts. Ultimately, the jury convicts, and the judge issues death sentences. Still, Knoll denies easy catharsis. Appeals loom. Families remain fractured. The killer continues to soak up oxygen in headlines. What changes, fundamentally, is who controls the story. Pamela and Ruth establish a scholarship in their friends' names, tour campuses to teach safety without victim blaming, and lobby for victim impact laws. In the closing pages, they attend a Denver conference where survivors brainstorm how to erase killers' names from public memory altogether, replacing them with gardens, libraries, and STEM grants honoring the lost women. Knoll's title, Bright Young Women, completes its metamorphosis. It is no longer an epitaph, but a rallying cry.